Good evening, everybody. This is Dr. Mulder, and tonight I have a good friend of mine, goes by the name of Mobius, and I'm sure that everybody's heard me talk about this guy many times. He is Joshua P. Warren's tech guy. Whenever Joshua has a problem, he always picks up the bat phone and he calls this guy Mobius. Mobius, how the hell are you this fine evening, sir?
I'm having a fantastic night, and boy, is it good to be here.
Well, thank you. It's good to have you on here. To kind of, for the newbies here that haven't heard of the show before, could you kind of give everybody a background on, what you've done here, the kind of engineering that you've done in the past or some of the projects? Just kind of give people a general, lay of the land of what your background is.
Probably time that I was 5 years old, it's been electronics all the way up to broadcast engineering, wave, ham radio, broadcast engineering, and always thought out of the box, built custom solutions, and kind of evolved to the point that I was making technology for Warner Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
Travel Channel, and things with Joshua. This is what happens when you want to be, as an adult, a job that combines Star Trek and Scooby Doo. This is where you end up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Fantastic. But you are an actual electrical engineer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And Sue, can you give the audience some of the projects you've worked on? I know there's been things that are satellite related and that kind of a thing. Could you kind of give people some of the things you've worked on in the past?
I have done broadcast engineering work. I've been a station engineer, worked in satellite TV, telecommunications companies. So I have done the whole gambit of, like two-way communications type things and telephone and radio engineering.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know that, whenever Joshua has a problem or whatever, you're always the guy he goes to and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I've been on that end of the, of the job myself. Josh will come up with some crazy idea. And once you put it all together, I think one of the things that you did was setting up something with, was it Shelley Wright? Concerning a movie. Y'all were going to put electrodes to her head and try to amplify the signals coming off her head to create a tulpa or something. Is that correct? Were you part of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh man, jeez.
We did the apparition movie, and it was
Hmm.
based. I laid out the technology that college kids would use to make a brainwave device, amplify it, and supposedly create the impression of their thoughts on reality.
Hmm.
And at some point, we got a phone call and said, "Hey, you guys theoretically could do this, but how would you like to do it in the lab? And do you have the gear and can you make it happen?" And
Right.
yeah, I happen to have an extra, brainwave EEG device, and we can do it. So if you watch the bonus features for the apparition movie, we actually do the experiment. We threatened that Shelley, she would have to have her head shaved. She has long red hair, and she was not impressed at all with this idea. So we had a lot of fun teasing and everything, but it was fun actually doing that experiment and it ending up on the bonus features of the movie. So
Right.
it's on Blu-ray. I don't think it's on just the DVD. So go get it, and it's kind of a fun watch.
Oh, cool. Yeah, like I said, I mean, that's just an example of some of the projects you've done. I mean, I think Joshua was doing something for what's his name? I forgot. But he had like some museum out in Las Vegas, and he's on some ghost show or whatever on I don't know if it's Discovery Channel or something, and you had to set up a Tesla coil for Josh, and it had to be hooked up to a radionics device, and I mean, it's just who the hell knows? I mean, all kinds of stuff was thrown into this thing. And, like I said, yeah, when it comes to weird projects, you have done quite a few, in your lifetime. Now, the thing that really impressed me here, and I have one of these myself, by the way, it's called the Sunshine Simple Junior. And what it is, it's a solar generator. I mean, it runs off of, solar energy and it's used to recharge a battery pack. Now, could you tell the audience a little bit about that, how it came about, this idea? And I know you probably worked on it years before you and Josh, decided to develop this thing, or have him, try to see if you could develop it for him, for sale. Could you kind of go through tell the audience a little bit how that came about, how that was created?
Well, first of all, I think I have to divulge a secret, and that is because of Coast to Coast AM. Joshua and I tend to have business phone calls at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to kick around ideas.
Been there,
And
done that. I know how that works. Yes.
you know how that works. And so we were talking one night about Bill Forstchen and his book, 1 Second After, and the fact of what could be done to better a situation if we had an EMP.
Mm-hmm.
And we assume that an EMP or else a sun event creating an EMP is one of the most likely attacks on the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've not read the book 1 Second After, it it's a good read that you should read.
Yeah,
But
and an EMP, everybody, is electromagnetic pulse, correct?
yes, and
Okay.
what it takes is basically 2 to 3 nuclear devices in low Earth orbit create such a strong pulse that it just destroys every modern electrical item in the grid. And it
Mm-hmm.
is just such an effective use of enemies' capabilities that it's a devastating first attack, and it would be very hard to defend against. So,
Right.
in the book lays out what happens after an EMP attack, and it's just not pretty. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's certain things in the book that are not addressed. One of these is the idea that just gutting um, telephones or basic electronics, you could in fact make a crystal radio,
Mm-hmm.
a radio such as used in like WW1.
Right.
It's not hard to make, and
Yeah.
a pencil, a few items, some wire, and a crystal headphone, you can improvise a radio very easily.
Mm-hmm.
But Joshua and I kept talking, and he's like, Mobius, why have you not created some type of electrical device that is solar and it can be EMP proofed and it would create a different outcome? He's like, you need to be thinking about this. So
Right.
about this time, boy, did I have an unhappy phone call. Over on his side of Asheville, he had a pretty heavy snowfall. It was a blizzard, and he had no power for a week. Now, he was prepared. He had, a backup generator. He had all the things that one would think of to be ready for anything. Well, exactly like you would imagine, his generator would not start. Nothing worked. His entire plan was like falling apart. And he called me up and he's like, this is no longer a theoretical assignment. I want you to make a solid state electronic backup that will power my essential electronics. And I want you to do it now. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this is where this idea went from theory to I want this in my house and I want it now. And so I did. I actually went out, researched it, made a device, and it was extremely cost effective at the time. And solar, let's go back to say 2006,
Mm-hmm.
was very expensive to create the technology and use it. This was the most cost effective thing that was out there. And we put it in his house and it works great.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he does things like podcasts where he has to do something live on the air. He has to have his communications. So it has saved the day for him over and over again. Even he took it to Puerto Rico where they have extremely bad power. But
Right.
since then, we've mastered even like tricks, like, creating an improvised EMP device using a trash can. And if you don't have access to a grounding rod, uh, we have a grounding adapter that plugs into an AC socket. And you can improvise an EMP cage for all of your SSS unit, Sunshine Simple, and your electronics. So
Yeah. Yeah, like your cell phone, your laptop computers, that kind of a thing. Correct.
everything, you say you have a hard drive that has all of your, like backup data. I would say everybody needs a good shortwave radio, uh, local weather band, AM, FM, so you have access. That was one of the issues in 1 Second After is nobody had access to radio. Nobody had
Mm-hmm.
access to international information. And with shortwave, you would be able to hear other countries' news even and kind of have an idea of what was going on. And that was devoid in the book. So the idea of creating all the solutions so the worst outcome did not happen in the book is even going camping, power outage during the winter or a hurricane. All
Mm-hmm.
of these are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So lo and behold, this was created for Joshua as his personal salvation device.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that saw it said, "Hey, make me one. I want one of those too." And all of a sudden, one order, became 5 orders. It became 10 orders. And I have actually lost track of how many we've sold. We certainly
Mm-hmm.
way more than 500. We know we've sold more than 700, and I know I've sold less than 1,000. So the exact amount over the years has become kind of gray. But these have actually sold a lot.
Right. Right.
I
I
even
mean,
have an example of a woman in South Carolina during a blizzard, and she lost all power and communications. And her
mm-hmm.
100-year-old mother started having heart issues. And she was able, with the unit, after, like 5, 6 days of no power, to call an air ambulance and get her mother's heart stabilized. And it
Mm-hmm.
saved her life. And that was, you save a human life with an invention. That's something that gives you a lot of heart. It makes you feel good about things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, the one you built for me, I think it was a 400-watt unit. It was sort of a smaller, portable type unit, and I keep that in the back of my Jeep. I mean, that's part of my to bug out package. Because here's the thing. Here's what I loved about this, and this like this little mini unit that you gave me. It has jumper cables in case the battery in my vehicle goes dead. It has USB ports. Has an actual 120 volt. I think you had like 2 outlets on this thing, for appliances and what have you. I mean, everything that I would need to run like charge my phone, run my laptop computer, uh, you know, jumpstart my vehicle. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's all in one tidy little package. I mean, you have like all those accessories that you throw in, and I just think those are awesome. And it's just like what you did for me was just I was really thoroughly impressed. And again, I carry that with me everywhere I go. And so you never know. I mean, if we have a tornado or whatever, yeah, I mean, it's not going to provide me a massive amount of power like the regular Sunshine Simple, but what it will do is it will get me over the hump where at least I'll have I'll be I'll still have some sense of civilization, if that makes sense.
I've actually lived on a Sunshine Simple unit making Sunshine Simples in one company for a month. And I actually had to because of we had a hurricane come through here and it was just devastating. And it did damage to the local home connections. And
Hmm.
we had to wait in line to get an electrician out here to do some of the electrical repairs. So I know what can be done. The
Yeah.
main secret in this work is, of course, now very common is LED lights using tablets instead of like maybe a laptop.
Hmm.
Anything that has heat, where you have a fan blowing heat, is actually using probably 300-400 watts, whereas a tablet is probably what, 10 watts.
Right.
So if you actually think in terms of energy efficiency, you can have an extremely high quality of life. The only thing I tell people is that you just can't use a device like this for heating or cooling. For
Hmm.
that, you jump over to a propane refrigerator or heater, and it's much more efficient in using electrical. But
Hmm.
if you plan accordingly, you can have, I mean, you don't have to have the outcome that 1 Second After did.
Hmm.
And I think Joshua was pretty happy. He was down in Puerto Rico with this, and nobody had power.
Oh
And
yeah.
Yeah, he was able to do podcast and live streaming shows. He was on a TV show, and nobody had any idea that within his, probably 100 square miles, he might have been the only one that had power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He was doing the entire thing off of Sunshine Simple. And I
Oh
was
yeah.
kind of proud of that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and the unit that you normally sell, like the standard unit, how many watts does it put out? And could you kind of give the audience a sort of a general idea? Okay, all right, you have this amount of wattage. What can you do with it? Like typical household appliances and that kind of thing.
Okay, well, the peak amount that the full size unit puts out is an 1800 watt peak. It has
Hmm.
probably a 1200 watt constant draw, but again, that is not how you use it. Using it that way depletes it, 45, 15 minutes. Now, it doesn't mean certainly if you need an emergency, it will power the tools that you need, or a printer, or whatever for that application. But let's say you're sitting at night, um, you can have your tablet on, a lights, all the essential things that you need. And if you're efficient, you're only drawing 30 watts. And at that point, you could have a week that there was no sun to recharge the unit, and you could maintain a very high level of efficiency. Keep your communications going, run a small business. If you were camping, no point would you be without essential electronics. And
Hmm.
that is the main thing, that you would lose all of this without EMP and an electrical backup happen. It would all be gone.
Hmm.
So I think we have figured out how to eliminate that from the equation of some type of negative event, be it a Keratin sun event where the sun burps a huge EMP at the Earth, or some type of nuclear exchange with an EMP in orbit.
Hmm.
I don't like to think in negative. I enjoy the unit when you're camping or you have a power outage. The wind blows, the tree falls, the lights go out. Man, I jerk my Sunshine Simple out and I just keep on going. So to me, it's just the act of being prepared is gratifying. I enjoy not feeling at the mercy of anything that happens.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And even where I'm at, I remember, I guess, like 8, 9 winters ago, the power went out due to the ice on the power lines, and all I had was like a little tiny battery, and I was using that to charge up my phone because I had, none, my computer wasn't working, whatever. So the only thing I could depend on was my smartphone, and watch my shows off of that, and use a propane heater, like basically a Coleman stove type configuration, and that was really it. That's all I had to work with. And I was thinking, oh shit, if I had something like what you were providing here, man, my life had been so much easier. It'd been so much happier. I could have used my soldering iron to build some more machines with, or a hot glue gun or whatever, just to get me through that that particular order, that all those orders I was working on at the time, and and also run a couple of lights. I mean, that kind of a thing. That is the difference between just sitting there twiddling your thumbs and hoping you don't freeze to death, and actually being able to do something productive, and or be entertained, or watch a movie on your laptop if if you're going to go that route. Now, my question is, oh, the regular Sunshine Simple. Okay, you have solar panels for this. How many solar panels do you have, and how do you have them set up? Can you basically put them out on your back patio toward the sun to charge up the unit, or do they have to be out in the yard? Could you kind of give the audience sort of a general idea about the setup of this thing?
Well, I can customize when I build these. Each one is actually handmade. So if we have a situation, somebody needs a 50-foot cable, we can make a 50-foot cable. I tend to normally make a 25-foot standard cable for most people. It's just
Mm-hmm.
simple, easy to work with and roll up and keep with your solar panel. The solar panel on the basic unit is 120 watts, and you have a main unit. It weighs about 55 pounds, and
Mm-hmm.
that is batteries. It's easy to move around. It has wheels on the bottom. And the technology is just very, very sound and very stable, very efficient.
Yeah.
You can charge it, of course, when if you're not having an emergency, and that is one of the secrets to the longevity of the battery is to keep the battery at 100% whenever possible.
Yeah.
It has to be charged all the time. You mentioned about once a month, I think you said
Yeah.
it goes down to 90%. You plug it in for a few hours, it's at 100, and you call it a day and put it back in storage.
Right. Yeah, mine, it's like about every 2 months, every 3 months, it'll get down about 90%. And yeah, serious, it's just that simple. All you gotta do is just plug. It has a extension cord, or a power cord built into the unit. You just plug it in the wall, then you mash a button for it to charge. And yeah, I don't even think it takes an hour when it's at 90%. On my particular unit, I mean, we're probably looking anywhere between a half an hour to an hour. And it's real simple. It's all, it's just, pressing a button. That's it. You're plugging it in, pressing a button, and you charge that thing up. And what I like too is you don't have like the old acid type batteries. In other words, you got the acid sloshing around. You got the sulfur, what do you call it? The hydrogen, the vapor, the gases that are coming off of the battery as it charges. You don't have any of that worry. Is that correct?
That's correct. These are cell batteries in the unit. There's no issues with the batteries. I expect they have, if they're taken good care of, about a 5-year lifespan. And that's another thing. There's people that sell stuff like this. Usually they're about twice the amount of money that we sell for, but they don't have the ability to maintain or repair. We actually make, repair, and do everything here. If something's wrong, you can send it to me and I can fix it because I
Mm-hmm.
made it. It's my baby.
Right. And like when I carry this thing in my car, it has I think it has two panels. Oh, but again, this is the Sunshine Simple Junior. It's the smaller portable unit, um, and I have like all the cables or whatever, and including the panels. I put like in a little small Tupperware type. I don't know what you want to call it, like a not really a chest, but it's just a box where you just throw all the stuff in there, and the box is only maybe 6 inches thick by about 24 inches long, and maybe 20 or maybe 12 to 18 inches wide. And anyway, I put that thing on there, put the battery pack in the control center or the control panel, which is like all self-contained. And it's about I would say half the size of a standard desktop computer. It's probably a good way to describe it. And I just put that on top of the plastic box, and I'm good to go. And it's just real simple, real. I mean, no pun intended, but it's just real simple to work with. And I like the way you have everything logically, set up on the machine, where it's just intuitive. You just look at it and you kind of figure it out by yourself. Yeah, it doesn't hurt to read the manual, but I'm just saying for somebody who's reasonably knowledgeable in this kind of thing, you can figure it out for yourself in a matter of a few minutes.
Sunshine Simple. Joshua ordered me when I designed these to make it simple. He said it should not be anything complicated. So the solar panel has a cord that can only be plugged into it one way. The unit has a jack. There's no other jack like it that the other end of the cord plugs into, and it's charging. So in an emergency, you put the solar panel out, you face it, approximately south so that it gets the most of the sunlight from
Mm-hmm.
east to west. You could probably, if you really wanted to get the max, you could probably face it a little bit, toward the east in the morning and a little bit more toward the west. And you might get a little boost if
Mm-hmm.
you were to get every last watt possible. But in effect, you can really just point it south and forget it because the
Mm-hmm.
difference is minimal, and the thing just will sit there and passively charge all day. And as long as it's not raining and cloudy, that's the
Mm-hmm.
limitations of solar, you will have a full battery during that night. And you're describing the Sunshine Simple Junior. The senior is about the size of a desktop computer, for the size of the case, and the panel with it It's a 120-watt panel. And this is where I should probably say something. Um, the whole world has gone to hell in a handbasket. And these units used to cost $1,495.
Right.
And lo and behold, in the last, well, 3 weeks, all of my main warehouse contacts are dumping. And they are like calling me up and they're wanting to get rid of solar panels. They're wanting to get rid of my parts. And I'm sitting here adding it up. I can easily now make a Sunshine Simple. Let's try this again. A Sunshine Simple senior unit, and you need to put the URL with this for $995 and ship it to you. So that's like a $500 discount. It's not on the website, and it's not, there's no other way than to email and ask for it to be mailed that price. But I can do that now. And so this is kind of unadvertised.
Yeah.
And I can include a grounding adapter. You have to supply a large trash can. It has to be solid metal, but you can put all of your electronics in it in a trash bag. I will send you the adapter, and you have an EMP proof, Carrington event proof power backup system, and you can put all of your electronics into a safe place. So, if things start getting shaky and you're like, wow, you know, um, you can feel good that when you go to bed, if something happens, your electronics will be working and you will have power the next day, no matter what happens. And at this point, it is pretty safe to assume that if things go south, an EMP attack is probably, that's what Bill Forstchen was saying, that this is the most likely form of attack that we would see in a major conflict.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I agree with you. And again, it's like the keratin event. People, for those who don't remember or remember this from history, what it was like in the mid 1800s, they had telegraph systems, that kind of thing. The sun, does its thing, shoots all this energy toward the earth, and it was so intense that sparks were coming off of the railroad tracks, off the wires for the telegram system or telegraph system. And people were just, literally, starting fires and people getting electrocuted and what have you at that moment. And then, I mean, now today, if we have that kind of a thing, people, you talk about, you will have no cell phone, you will have no computer. The power grid that we have here has not been hardened, even though people have been raising hell about doing some upgrades to the power grid for the U.S. to prevent any kind of a EMP type scenario from damaging our power grid, and they haven't done anything yet. I don't know why. Well, I know why, because they don't care, but that's another story. And and again, in a split second, you're turned back into the 17th and 18th century minimum, and nothing. You will have nothing. You will be back. Your life will go back 150 years that fast. And this right here at least gives you a little bit of civilization. At least you have lights. You can play a DVD. I don't know how the communications are going to be. If we have a EMP, Mobius, that shuts down all the radio stations, all the local radio stations in that area. Is that correct? Or so. I don't think they're even hardened for this kind of activity. Is that true or no?
As far as I know, most radio stations would be taken off the air because they have solid state electronics. I
Yeah.
believe that we have two main radio stations in the US that have two type transmission systems
Right.
that would be used for emergency communications.
Right.
But this is really cool. At night and in the daytime, there are two bands in shortwave. One is active at night and one is active in the day. And using just a small portable emergency radio, everybody should have a good shortwave radio.
I agree.
Because if everything went off in the United States, you can get transmissions from all over the earth at night And it's not expensive. You can find a shortwave radio, something from like above the AM band to 30 megahertz for about $79.
Yeah,
Maybe even as cheap as $50 for like a lower end.
yeah.
And yeah, something has AM, FM, and shortwave. It is the best thing to have. It should be in every home, and it should be kept in some type of EMP proof environment so that you have it and can use it in an emergency. It would have changed the outcome in that book because people would have known from like all over the world what had happened. And that was
Mhm.
like one of the main things in the book. Nobody knew what happened and had no access to outside information. So that obvious one way that you can change the outcome.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I'm like, you and I, we have a little inner circle here of four people that have similar ideas on what can happen. We hope to God it doesn't happen, but we are aware of what can happen. And I mean, all of us are. I would say we're probably a little bit more prepared than the average American. And it's just simple things, like you said, a shortwave radio. I mean, I have one right now. Matter of fact, uh, my buddy, a mutual friend of ours, who's also electronic, one hell of an electronic technician, he gave me a shortwave radio, and all I need is the antenna, and just if worst case scenario, flop it over a tree, and at least I have communications. Worst case scenario, I'll have some kind of communications where I can hear what the hell's going on, and
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
important. That's
Yeah.
important. And again, if even if nothing ever happens, or whatever, you like I said, how many times have you been sitting there and the power goes out and you're lighting candles and the only thing you have is candles and flashlights. And if you're lucky, you may have a gas generator and hopefully you maintain the thing, you got plenty of gas for it, and that'll keep things running. You'll be able to watch your TV or what have you. But depending on how long this thing is, say you're stranded, like you said, like in a blizzard, you're not going to be able to go down to the local gas station and get a fill up or top off your 5 gallon uh, gas gas jugs or what have you. You're not going to be able to do that. And I mean, and this thing right here, it's completely silent. Because that's another thing too. If things get bad and they hear your generator, ladies and gentlemen, they hear your generator. Guess what? You just become a beacon. If they see lights and say that you have electricity, you just become a target because they're going to want what you have, depending on how desperate they are. If things get that bad, I mean, I know I'm not trying to you know, be trying to sound like a oh well the world's going to fall apart and it's going to be another case of the Walking Dead or what have you. I'm seriously, uh, you know noise attracts a lot of things, including people, desperate people. So what I love about this, number one, there's no exhaust. Number two, it's completely silent.
I completely agree. And I'm not a negative person, but I like to have essential medical supplies on hand. I like my shortwave radio. It's actually by my head as we do this.
Hmm.
And I have like two in the house. I like having all of the necessary things. I like having, like dry food, survival food. I have about 90 days on hand. And I think all of us have gotten to this point not because we're afraid and not because we even expect. I think we have, all of us, the ability to manifest the highest possible good in our intention, and we expect it. But we have chosen to be on this earth. We have chosen to be physical beings, and we know that that entails the experience. And sometimes things happen. And
Yeah.
part of the things happening is the ability to plan accordingly and to make good decisions. And if you can't do that and you don't do that, you will suffer the consequences. So that was kind of like Joshua. He doesn't want to be negative. And when he promotes these, we do it together, mainly for like hurricanes, preparedness, camping, and all of that.
Hmm.
But in the back of our minds, we realistically know that things can and do happen.
Right.
So it is nice to always be prepared, kind of a Boy Scout thing for any eventuality.
Right, exactly. You know, I look at it like a fire hydrant. You hope to God you never need it, but if you do, it's there. You
I
know?
agree with that.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's no way that you can buy the senior unit for any way but to email us and ask for it, to send me a price payment request for $9.95 shipped, and I will do it and I will ship it to you.
Yeah,
But at
and
this point on the website, if you look, sunshinesimple.com, that
mhm.
unit, $18.95 there. I haven't had time for my HTML guide to go in and change it. And it may
Yeah,
be, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks before he does. So right now, you have a secret. This
yeah,
thing is an unlisted special for $995. Sunshine
exactly.
Senior.
Yeah, and what we'll do, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have the link there in the description, so you can go right to it. Just click to it, and it'll take you right to that. And and just let Mobius know that you heard about this on the show, and it's a gimme. He'll take care of you. Now, my question is, what is the turnaround time? Like, if I were to order one today, when can I expect the thing to be shipped? Because I know that you have to handcraft these things, and also do have the capability of customizing them for the customer. So, on average, what's the turnaround time?
Each one of these is handmade. So about, I would say 10 days is fair. But a long time ago, one of our competitors did the craziest thing possible. They copied our website and they copied it too good. And all of a sudden, we started getting, first of all, it was like 5 orders in one day, and then it was 10, and then it was
Hmm.
20. And
Right.
they just became more and more and more. And Joshua and I kept asking each other, "What are you doing?" And
Hmm.
neither one of us had done anything at that point.
Right.
And what had happened, one of our competitors used our URL, included it in Mother Earth News, and we were getting orders that somebody else paid for because they made a mistake. They copied it too well. And so I think we had, something like 100 orders that came in from another company copying our website. It was
Hmm.
hysterical. But, you know, you talk about ramping up. I was prepared to make, 5 units a week back then. All of a sudden, I have a humongous pile of orders. So we got those out. I think that took about a month when that huge amount came in.
Hmm.
And, now, now after that experience, I could probably do it a lot faster. But that was, you ramp up overnight. And so I would say 10 days, as long as we don't get a stampede. And I
Oh
don't
yeah. Yeah.
I would say this is a small webcast. Joshua screamed it to a million people at times, and we didn't have that. But the Mother Earth news, that was an unforeseen blessing and curse at the same time. But it was kind of fun. It was a
Yeah.
test passed.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've gone through the same thing. Josh will get on a show, and I'll get like a bunch of orders for machines, that kind of a thing. And one thing about it, I probably cut down the manufacturing time of my very first machine, which was a very simple machine compared to today's standards. But I would say even for the most you know my medium electronic machines, just say the standard electronic machines that we sell, I probably cut down my manufacturing time by about 60%, probably two-thirds from the very first machine I made to what I produce now. And the reason is because you start learning how to mass produce things. You start you're able to plan ahead and get parts built. That's another thing too. I've noticed you probably have the same problem is building parts for these units because a lot of the stuff is I'm assuming it's custom built. Is that correct?
Everything I custom build these out. Initially, the cases that people got were Duracell cases because it was convenient to use somebody else's case, and we gutted those and built all of our electronics into that case.
Mm-hmm.
So um, we've come a long way. It's the same thing that you're saying. I mean, I've learned processes, learned to expedite things, but the greatest test was, that Mother Earth news. And
Right.
yeah, and the funny thing was, I'm telling an inside story, but I was baffled. I started emailing people. How did you hear about us? and they were talking about this amazing Mother Earth news ad that we had taken out. And I was like, what is going on? So I finally called Mother Earth, and they finally, explained to me and sent me a copy of the advertiser and the little the insert, and then they wanted to sell me advertising. And it's quite a thing when somebody copies you so closely, they use your URL. So somebody else paid for that ad and gave it to us. That's a heck of a mistake. So,
Oh yeah.
kind of laughing it up, but that is probably what hardened us. So at this point, I can't even imagine a stampede that would come in greater than that.
Oh yeah. Well, I already know of at least three people right off the top of my head that could use this thing. I know of some people live in Florida, and you know what happens during storm season. What's one of the first things that goes down is the power. You know, they could put this unit in the trunk of their car or their little their SUV or their minivan, not take up much space, probably about what I would say, all in all, maybe the size of a medium-sized piece of luggage. That's about how much space it's going to take up inside your vehicle. And we're talking about like for the actual Sunshine Simple Senior. Is that correct? I mean, like
Yeah,
that. Yeah. And
size,
so,
a full size desk computer. And by the way, I'm going to send you the exact URL so that nobody has to negotiate the site. So that you can just click underneath this video and you will be able to go directly to the link. So how's
right.
that for making it simple?
Perfect, perfect. And like I said, in Mobius, he's a very personable guy. If you like have any questions about this, you can, I'm sure you could got a contact on your website where they can, send you an email or a message and about any questions. Is that correct?
That's correct. Also,
Oh,
I customized. I've done a lot of these even for high-end biological uh, systems backup. I have no idea what they're doing with them. They acted like it was top secret, but they gave me their specs. I made the units for them as their specs, and we shipped them out. So we have done that to a lot of different, like labs and other things that needed energy backup systems.
mm-hmm.
If somebody needs something that's kind of out of the ordinary or get customized, we can do it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, it's just some crazy stuff here, and like I said, the only reason why I wanted to bring Mobius on the air. Number one, he builds a fantastic unit. I have one myself. I've used the thing. I've recharged it. I've played around with it, make sure it functioned correctly. It's built solidly, and again, I have this in my vehicle wherever I go, I have an outside source of electrical power if I need it. And I'm gonna tell you, man. I mean, I could, all kidding aside, if I want to, I can, the way things are right now, I can get in my Jeep. I can go up to the mountains and live up there for a couple of weeks. The way I got everything set up, live there for a couple of weeks, and be able to listen to the radio, watch a DVD, or watch a movie on my computer. I can use my shortwave radio to communicate out in the middle of nowhere. And like I said, it's rechargeable. And now, I think you covered this earlier, but I just want to make sure. Only, say your battery. What's the when this thing? How low does it get before it really, where you really can't power anything? Like when the thing quote unquote goes dead. When it gets to that level, how long on the average, I know it varies from like if the day's overcast or where the sun's at or what have you, but on the average, how long does it take to recharge one of these things, if from being quote unquote dead to fully charged?
Well, one issue here I will be clear about, there's also a seasonal issue.
Hmm.
And there's also what is called peak sun. So in the summer, you're getting probably about 14 hours of peak sun, say June 21st of charging. Whereas in December, you're probably getting 9, maybe
Okay.
a little less than 10 hours peak charging. So say you take the unit down, you have 40 or 60% charge left. Easily in winter, that's restored. if you want to avoid any battery, including your cell phone, your tablet, whatever, as many deep discharges as you can. That essentially accounts to battery life. But on a full deep discharge in summer, you will get a full recharge during a summer night. During the winter, about 60% on one panel, and you always have the option. I can add another panel if you want more energy for recharging. And that in the winter will complete a full recharge on a Sunshine Simple Senior unit. Your
Okay.
unit has less battery on a Junior, and so your battery will probably in winter come close to a full charge. And in summer, I believe that I just don't see that you would, in any circumstances, not have a full charge in summer. But
Okay.
again, seasonal, um, the angle of the Earth and the intensity of the light do make a difference.
Right. And during the daytime, when you have the sun hitting the panels, it's constantly bringing a charge into the batteries or into the unit itself, and you could, I guess, continue use it during the day without discharging the batteries too badly. Is that correct?
That is correct. You are using energy that is coming in directly from your solar panels. There is a little bit of energy that is extra, and you can actually use a minimal amount of battery, if any at all. And you can actually even cheat and directly power some devices from the solar panel. So there's an option too, especially 12-volt devices
Hmm.
can be powered. And at that point, you're just like getting free energy,
Oh
other
yeah.
than the investment of the unit. So yeah, you're right.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, that's what I like about this. It's you're able to customize to make things fit for each individual scenario because everybody has a different a different kind of a house, a different landscape. Are they in the country? Are they in the city? I mean, what's the available space they have to put these panels and make sure that nobody walks off with them? And I mean, it's usually
Uh,
like on a patio or a back porch for most cases, I'm assuming.
yeah, I don't usually suggest you leave a panel unattended out charging unless they're in a safe location, especially in a city. They're a valuable item, and there are unfortunately people that see that and will remove it. It's a survival item, and at this point, there's a list of things you just don't leave out, or you don't leave out in your car because they will walk. But the
Hmm.
good thing is you charge them from an AC socket if you need be without even revealing that you have this technology.
Hmm. Yeah, and again, it goes back to being stealth. I mean, where you're under the radar. I mean, you don't really make a big, uh, you know, you don't really draw a lot of attention, and that's what I like about this. I mean, it's just really cool.
That was what I was going to say. I think stealth and survival instinct and being under are probably
You're
one of the
starting to,
important
yeah,
things you can do.
yeah,
Hmm?
you're starting to break up a little bit there, Mobius. I don't know if you,
Okay. Are you hearing me better now?
oh, a lot better, a lot better, a lot better.
Well, I was
Okay,
going to say that stealth is probably one of the key elements to any plan because otherwise that plan's going to go out the window when somebody interferes with it.
right, yeah. And I mean, it's just incredible. What can be done with that? Well, like I said, that's one of the things I really felt was really important. I want to bring on the show. And another thing you and I were talking about last night. And oh, by the way, once again, there will be a link in the description box where you can click onto, uh, you know, just click and it'll take you right to his website and you'll get the discount. Was it 9.95? Is that what it is? And
Yes, 995, but you have to ask me for it because my HTML guy is at least 3 weeks booked. So there's no way I'm going to get a site update. So this
right.
is unannounced sneak in special that you contact us, you ask for it, and I'll send you a payment request. And you're going to be way ahead of the crowd because I imagine when I announce this, there will be a stampede.
Oh yeah. And so at 9.95, is that shipping included or is shipping extra?
Shipping is included.
Wow. That is
And on top of that, everybody that tells me, that they've come through this is going to get a free grounding kit. So you supply the trash can, and I will teach you to make this EMP proof. And that is not on the website. This is only between you and me and anybody listening. We have created this, we have optimized it, it works, and it has never actually been offered before. So I have a huge box made up, and I have not added it to the website. So if you order now and you tell me that you're one of Brad's, like people coming through here, I send this free with the kit too. So you
Rock
will
and
be
roll.
proof. How's that for cool?
Oh man, that's beyond cool, dude. I mean, that's better. You know, what you're this is highly competitive against the gasoline generators. I mean, because these things have gone up in price, and they're because everybody's wanting one. That's the first thing they go for is the gasoline generator. But what you're providing here in the long run is a lot more portable. It's a lot easier to to quote unquote fuel it, and just very low profile. And again, you know, if the if the if desperate people are riding through a neighborhood and they start hearing that two-cycle engine, in somebody's backyard, and they see a few lights on in the house, they already know the first thing they're thinking is, "Boy, I'd like to have that for myself."
Yep.
And they're looking at yours. So it's I'm just saying, I'm not trying to, like you said, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here, but this is a real legitimate concern. See, the next thing I want to talk about here, kind of switching gears. Uh, you and I, you know, you and a mutual friend of ours who used to work for an agency over there in Virginia, we're all into this one thing. It's the night vision goggles. Now, could you tell it? And you tell me right now, because of certain foreign or certain events that are in Eastern Europe right now, that the supply chain is basically completely broken down. Is that correct? Or what's going on here?
Okay, well, there's two kind of night vision that I have sold till now. For people who wanted the lower budget night vision, I have been selling the Gen 2s that use a Russian supplied tube. And I have known these were Russian made. Uh, so they have been kind of coming in quietly, and I've been choosing the best of the tubes and selling them up until now. Well, very few in the last year, but let's say up until now. Mostly I sell US made Gen 3 uh, alpha tubes, very clear tubes for UFO and paranormal investigators. And I love doing this. I mean, you see with a 10,000 times light gain into the sky. So you watch satellites pass over, you see space junk, you see a million shooting stars. It's amazing how many there actually are that you don't see because they're just not bright enough. They're just so small.
Hmm.
Uh, you see very odd things like stars that you don't recognize, and all of a sudden they start moving. You see items that make 180-degree instant turns. Yeah, you see things that do not immediately have an explanation. So that's one of the big things that we sell. But lo and behold, there are no Gen 2 night vision now in the United States.
Hmm.
Company that was importing them was doing so in the QT. They were
Right.
being sent as kits. They were made in South America and they were brought in and sold in Texas. And I knew that that ship was going to sell. So it's still on the website. If somebody buys it, I will have to refund you because there are none. They're gone. And I have seen scalpers now selling these items. They have gone up to maybe $1,200, $1,300 for the people that have bought some at the last moment that got them, but they're gone. At this
Oh, yeah.
point, there I can't buy something for $1,300 and sell it to you for $595.
Right.
So that ship has sold, and only the Gen 3s are on my site are still available. But boy, are they cool. You want to write me and talk about night vision? Well, yeah, it's fun to watch the sky and to see all these unique things. But also from like a survivalist standpoint, I mean, night is day. There is
Yeah.
nothing that can get within a half a mile of you that there's not, it's just daylight. You see it. And you know what? I happen to know this guy who's named Brad, and along with all the other things in his vehicle, I think he has a pair of night vision that came from my company. How's that?
You are,
Good guess.
yeah, you are correct. You are correct. Yes, I do. I carry that everywhere I go, also, because you're absolutely correct. It is basically you have turned night into day. I mean, it has a greenish hue to it. I mean, it's going to look greenish, a greenish color, but you will be able to see what the hell is going on in the dark. And the only thing, the biggest warning here, and Mobius really stressed this to me, you cannot point that thing at any artificial light.
Yeah, the biggest Gen 2 was more forgiving than Gen 3. But Gen 3, you don't use it near street lights, man-made lights in homes, outdoor lights. You panic if you see, a car coming your way with headlights. Before the car comes over the horizon, you will know it just because you see the ambient light increase. You
Right.
protect your tubes against being what's called burned, because along with the 10,000 times light gain, somewhere probably the darkest night might be up about 40,000. But a bright light here on Earth amplified 40,000 times in that tube is going to burn the tube. And it is a tube. It is not a modern digital technology. There is no type of modern technology that can do what this does. And it is indeed a old-fashioned tube-type technology that the U.S. military and our Gen 3 night vision uses. But it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
anybody that has the opportunity to see the night sky and stargaze through these, the experience is so much better than a telescope, and it's addictive. And you will see things. By the way, I should hook you up. I will also give you a link to post to Jason's night vision channel. I
Okay.
have a guy that we have been training now for 2 years, and he uses our night vision, and he
Mm-hmm.
just keeps getting the coolest night vision. We're talking like, not only weird objects, but objects shooting out, ejecting objects, zigzagging. He has more captures than any other human being. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm jealous because I don't have the time. I'm kind of like you. You would say, I would love to be doing these things, but I'm making wishing machines. Well, I'm doing all of Joshua's shipping. I make sunshine symbols. I do all this. So I don't actually have time to anymore to go out and stare at the sky with my night vision. So I depend on other people to send me photos of the cool things they see or telling me what goes on out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh
kind
yeah.
of being the victim of your own success.
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever looked through a pair of those goggles. You and our mutual friend from Virginia, we were over at my parents' property, and we were looking up in the sky, and I could see a damn satellite pass by.
You see satellites pass over, you see space junk skip on the atmosphere. But now, I don't want to tell people that you're going to every single night see a UFO or an object that you cannot explain. That's a
Hmm.
false pretense. And there are groups in the United States that I think that they promote birds and other objects, and they look very unique in night vision, but they misrepresent them. I think integrity is very important. You will see strange things, but most things have an explanation,
Hmm.
especially things that don't have weird course changes or don't show intelligent, control. But I would say that if you spent a couple of weeks with these, I would say 2 weeks staring at the sky a few hours a night, I would almost be certain that you would see something that would not have a very good explanation, if any explanation, based on
Yeah.
my own experience.
Well,
So
yeah, and I don't think they're like little gray men or little green men running these things. I think they're us. And Mobius, I told you this story many times, and I know you've heard some similar stories from that part of the country. Um, I think it was back around 1993. I was had to go to Fayetteville or drive through Fayetteville to make a small delivery. I was in a pickup truck, you know, this just for a factory at the time. And this, like I said, this was a long, long time ago. And anyway, Fayetteville, if has a major military base there called Fort Bragg. I mean, this is a major base. This is where I think you have was the 82nd Airborne is over there, if memory serves. They got Special Forces, you know, all kinds of military. I'm not giving away any secrets here. You know, you can look this up anywhere. And you know, a lot of generals, that kind of thing, are over there also. I mean, it's just it's a big time military base. Well, getting back to what happened about 11 o'clock at night, I'm driving right past I'm right in downtown Fayetteville, just driving past the main drag, and as I drive past, I see what looks like a 747, you know, kind of just hovering. I mean, it really wasn't going all that fast, and it had the lights on the whole 9 yards, and it was completely silent. I didn't hear any jet engines or what have you. So I'm thinking, what the hell? This guy's going to crash. So my first thought was get the hell out of his way. So I went ahead and sped up, you know, moved about a couple of blocks, and this thing just kept on going. I was looking, you know, I kind of stuck my head out the window and looking at this thing. It kept on going, and it just crawled. I would say like 15 miles an hour, about 100, maybe 150 feet off the ground, and it was about the size of a football field. It was painted in Desert Storm camo beige. All right, and as it passed me, they had like a military insignia on the back of it. It was, I think it was white. It was it looked like a shield, but it had two sabers inside of that shield, and it was a navy blue background, and the sabers were white, and the shield was like in a white trim. And this thing is just hovering, moving past me about 15 miles an hour, completely silent, Mobius. I mean, completely freaking silent. And I'm thinking to myself, I need to get the hell out of here. So I start, you know, leaving, and apparently, as this thing was traveling, it looked like it was going. You know, at the time, I didn't know where the base was at, but now, you know, I looked. You know, I've been over there before, and I've looked at it, and this thing was heading directly toward Fort Bragg. Now, if this thing was not ours, they would have because they have an air base over there also for the you know, for helicopters and what have you. If this thing had not been one of ours, somebody would be, you know, they'd be out there scrambling. They'd be, you know, you would see some activity going on big time, but nothing. I mean, completely silent, nothing. The skies were clear. And as I leave Fayetteville, I'm looking to, you know, outside my driver's side window, and I see that thing hovering above a major or a large apartment building. Just hovering right above it, and it was larger than the apartment building. And that right there proved to me that's one of ours. That's one of ours. There's no doubt in my mind that we have anti-gravity now. No doubt in my mind. And I got to see it over there in downtown Fayetteville almost 30 years ago. Have you heard any stories like that yourself? I'm just curious.
I completely agree with what you're saying. And I haven't had the opportunity to see anything up close like that. I would have loved to have been there with you. Josh seen something that he describes flying over him as a giant anti-gravity like V. Art L has his famous story near his home where he saw something very similar to what you describe as this giant V-like craft. But what I have seen on the night vision, and I saw it at a much higher angle, was a V-like craft. I'm almost positive beyond doubt that it's orbital, and it has 3 dots on the surface of it. And I am pretty confident to say that I think it's military technology, some type of, you know, maybe airplane slash spacecraft that uses whatever systems to just exit the atmosphere and go into orbit. And I haven't seen it, you know, do any 180 instant turns or anything, but I've seen it on 2 occasions, and it's very distinct. And when you see it, it's one of the holy grails of night vision to actually see this object. So I have seen it, and it very easily could be the same thing that you saw. It could be capable just as well of being low to the atmosphere, could be capable of being in orbit. If anti-gravity is possible, everything's possible. At that point, there are no limitations. And
Right.
so it opens up the whole idea even of the secret space force. Do I have any evidence that we have such as this? No. But I have seen that V craft in orbit with a high level of confidence. And I have like done videos. I was one of the producers for Factor Faked, and I have seen so many of these craft. And there is a very famous V video of one of these is often said to be over Afghanistan. I don't know where it is, but I'm almost 100% certain that this video is authentic wherever it was filmed on night vision, and is about the same object that I'm seeing. And it sounds like what you're describing. And
Right.
you got the holy grail of experiences. You got to see it at point blank range. And I would have loved to have seen what you did and try to see anything. I think I would have turned on the AM radio to see if we were getting static. Anything. Oh, if I had a compass, I would be so excited. All a fluorescent tube to see if there was like any electronic fields. Anything to try to imagine what is making this thing fly. My engineering side would have just gone into overdrive to try to reverse engineer what I'm seeing and understand why and how this is happening.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean,
anti-gravity is a holy grail. And yes, I do believe that we secretly have this technology.
hmm yeah. And again, this thing was painted, and that beige they used in Desert Storm, that was like what, 91, 92. I think that's when Desert Storm. That's when when we invaded Iraq, or kicked Iraq out of Kuwait, and then went in there and did our whatever we did, or Um, so yeah, like I said, that thing was like, again, it was painted a distinctive color, which is the actual same identical color that you see on like all the army vehicles or what have you. Uh, you know that like on the back of trains or on the back of trucks, going down the interstate. It's the same identical color and had a military insignia on it. And I mean, this thing, uh, I don't know what else to tell people. And I even tried to find this thing on the internet, and I couldn't even find it. So who the hell knows what the insignia represents? Because the way I understand it, they do represent certain certain parts inside of the military. It could be like a division, a platoon, a million different things, or what have you. And these insignias have very specific meanings. And so I couldn't even find the thing. But it's just interesting, how this goes. But and kind of shifting gears here again, Mobius. Basically this is a radionics show, and I know that you and I have talked about radionics before. And could you possibly give, like, the new listeners, the story that you had? I mean, I know you had several, and it's like one of the concerning. I think both of them were either food or beverage related. Could you possibly tell the audience about some of the things you've done with the wishing machines I've given you, just to try out, and just let them know what you did. This is what you did. This is this is what the aftermath. This is what happened. Could you kind of give the audiences a couple of your stories, sir?
Okay, I am the worst person for the wishing machine because I am so logical, I am so scientific and grounded that the entire idea of this thing just drives me crazy. But as skeptical as I am open-minded, and I understand when things happen and when I experience them and the improbability of it. So that being said, I do have this wishing machine. And when I make normal, logical wishes, they just for me do not work. And I think my logic is poison. So here is what I did in the experience I had. There was one night that I was out of Coca Cola. You love this story. It's a good
Yeah,
story.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this was passionate. This was emotion, and there's no logic to this. It's so there was just no way I was getting Coca-Cola. There's nothing open near me, and you can attest. I live in the middle of nowhere.
You are
Uh,
correct.
yeah, the you know what Egypt sign, probably you pass it before you get to me.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Uh,
about 5 miles before your house. Uh-huh.
yeah, you always complain because there's not a cell signal to be found here. And so I'm like, there's no Coke coming tonight. I'm out. Oh, crap. And so I took a wishing machine and I made a very exacting, very emotional wish. And I'm like, I want a can of Coca Cola to be waiting here on the couch when I wake up. I'm craving it. I want it. I want it bad. And I want it now. And I did the whole process. I made the wish and I kind of did it. I did it sincerely, but I did it passionately. But I don't even think, I think I disconnected from my logic. And I think it
Okay.
was just total emotion, pure, unbridled emotion. And I went to bed. And, the next day, I had absolutely zero expectations. I didn't wake up and think, aha, I'm going to magically have Coca Cola in the house. Probably didn't even occur to me to think about it. I walk into the downstairs into my office and I look into my couch and I'm stunned silly. There's a can of Coke sitting there with a note. And you can just imagine what I said is exactly what I said. I said WTF because
Mm-hmm.
it's exactly to the point that I said I wanted a can of Coke.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends had come over before I woken up. They said I came over early, wanted to see if you were up, brought you Coke, thought you might like it, and I left it for you. Maybe see you later in the day. And it was signed Kuka to be exact. And she was an assistant to us for a point, and she had moved out at that point and gone on her own. I was stunned off my ass. She has no idea that I had made that wish. There's no way she could have known. And she didn't even know where I had pointed that I wanted the damn can.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, there was the can exactly as I had made the wish. Now,
Mm-hmm.
here's what I comprehend. If you think about it, there's no difference between $1 million, um, a Mercedes Benz, or a can of Coke. When you make a wish, all of these, whatever value or whatever abstract thing that you apply to it, is in your mind only. That can of Coke appeared for me. Maybe it's logical how it got there and a person brought it, and somebody can say, well, it's a coincidence. No, it's really not. This person never comes over. I don't see this person usually, maybe Christmas. And for this person to randomly just feel the, need to come over and leave a can of Coke, it's 1 billion to 1. So that tells me that if you did it right and you could overcome your, own limitations and your own objections and logic, that you can do anything with a wishing machine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can I do it? My logic is against me. I have to be emotional. And my emotional wishes, besides that, have worked. My logical wishes, they never work.
Mm-hmm.
So, anybody's listening to me, if you're able to do something with the wishing machine and you use it and you come at it with pure passion, that is the secret. This thing is powered by your emotion, your desire, your raw oomph. If you use logic and you overthink it, you're going to kill your wish. And
Yeah.
so that's all I can tell you. And that's my experience. And you know what? As an engineer, if you push me back, I have absolutely no explanation how this worked. I can't fathom it.
Right. Exactly. And here's the thing. I mean, not only did you, the Coke. I mean, that's one of the stories. I mean, you have another story like concerning a certain type of candy. And you had another story concerning somebody from a movie, from a science fiction movie. Could you tell us two stories right quick, Mobius?
they're very similar stories where you wanted to meet somebody, and there's a person. I cannot stand the new Star Treks, and I wanted to meet the person who was the set decorator and tell him how bad that I hated the entire layout of the new Trek movies. There's things like barcode readers and horrible things within the movie, and I made that wish. And lo and behold, on Facebook, a guy contacts me and he is looking for a job to pick up some extra income. And he says he's Star Trek, he does design, he does props. And he sent me his IMDb, and he's asking if I, could help him, like sell some celluloids from Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
And I go and I look at his IMDb, and he is the guy that built the bridge. And there he is in my email, and we're talking. He is the set designer. He is the very person that I wanted to have talked to. And again, it's that's billions. He found me. I'd even find him. And so we ended up having a pretty good talk. And I told him how I felt. He wasn't nasty about it. And he's like, a lot of people feel the same way you feel and have the same feelings that, I really don't think these movies touch the heart of original Trek. But he's like, you know what? It's a damn job for me. If somebody pays me money, I do what they want and I do it the way they want. I don't care. This water, it just falls off my back. We ended up actually, becoming friends, and I was able to help him sell a whole bunch of materials, and it helped him when he was having a slow point and some income, and he needed money. So he made some really good, or else he had them, TNG celluloids, and what that actually means is the displays and the controls you see on the show are actually prints with light under them. And he was one of the people who either got a hold of these or made them. And he made light boxes and sold them. And so I was able to help him sell about 30 of them, get some income that he needed for whatever his situation was. And he's actually on my Facebook. I could reach out and talk to him right now. The other thing that you wanted me to mention was this particular type of candy that I had not had in years. And I was actually craving it. And it's very obscure. It only comes from Germany. And it's hard to get. It's not even all over Germany. And so I wanted it. And so I made the request. And lo and behold, this guy shows up. I think it was like the day or the day after at the door to visit. And he's here to see the kids, see the family, and he hands me a bag of this obscure candy. And I'm like, whoa. And
What are
again,
the odds?
these wishes were not logical wishes. You can sit down and think about problems and like, I want $1 million and just be extremely logical. It does not work for me. But when I do these weird passion wishes where I'm just thinking with my heart, how crazy things happen.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I kind of get to the point. I guess I've done this so many times. It's almost like automatic writing. If I set a machine, I don't even really think about it anymore. To be honest with you, Mobius. At the point, when I first started out, I was just like that. I was just like that. Throw passion into it. Put a lot of energy into it. But now I've gotten to the point where I've done this literally at least 10,000 times, minimum 10,000 times. Tuning these machines. And after a while, you get to the point where it's like riding a bicycle. You don't even think about it. That makes sense. And so, but still, there's a lot of energy expenditure there, coming from me when I do this because I have to focus in my mind. What is the outcome? That's how I always use these machines. I go directly toward what it is I'm trying to accomplish. And I have to say that the times that have I gotten every single thing that I used the machine for? Not every single thing, but in hindsight, it was probably best that I didn't have it at that time. And you'd be surprised, like maybe a year or 2 years down the road, the thing materializes. And I realized then you have to, for things in reality, to manifest themselves, other things have to happen. It's like a chain reaction. Other things have to happen in order to make certain things happen. Like for example, the Coca-Cola. In order for that to materialize or for it to happen, that woman had to go to the convenience store, had to buy that can of Coca-Cola, had to immediately go down to your house and place it on your sofa, even though a random place to her. She probably put it there because she thought you'd see it. But again, that was the absolute one. That was the place that you wanted that can of Coca-Cola to be. You wake up in the morning, there it is, and even with a nice little note telling you who brought it to you. The point of it is, yeah, you could have wished for that can of Coca-Cola. The chances of it just materializing out of the ether, yeah, that's a possibility, but it's not going to. I would say the chances of that happening are basically slim to none. But the fact that the chain of events of that woman, taking all the steps that it took in order to bring it to your house and put it in a certain location, yeah, that's pretty freaking interesting. That's pretty freaking interesting of what happens because what was in her mind when she did this? Did she even have any inclination of even dropping by your house before you made that wish, or is it just the of you projecting your thoughts into the ether and making this thing happen, making it materialize, make it become a part of this reality? And it's the damnedest thing I've ever seen. And I would say minimum 80% of the things that I set a machine for, I get. And I keep I have to kind of pat myself on the back in a weird kind of way because it was close enough for government work because the odds of this happening, are just it's just phenomenal. You remember last Christmas, when they had that snowstorm over in Kuwait, and and they said the headlines, first time in recorded history. And I'm going to tell you, Mobius, you can even go back on some of my shows, some of my earlier shows where I talked about I was going to set up an experiment for this weather anomaly to occur. Then I said, that it's going to be on the 25th of December, and this is all public. It's all public. And I was off by 2 days. It happened on the 27th. And they said it's the first time in recorded history that it ever snowed. Bullshit. It snowed. I'll never forget this date because I had to look it up. And a friend of mine who was over there deployed over in Kuwait reminded me of when it happened. It was January the 28th, 2016. That was the first time in recorded history. That was the actual first time in recorded history that it snowed in Kuwait. And again, not once but twice. And each one of these times, I set a machine for this to happen. Now, could this be a pure coincidence? Of course it could be. But all I did the first time, yeah, I was a little passionate about it because I'm a practical joker and I like playing tricks on people. But this time when I did this, which would have been 7 years later, I really didn't think that much about it. I just turned the dials and said it's going to snow, and that was it. Walked away. That's all I did. Creating an act of God by turning these dials, and it makes me wonder what is reality. How can you manipulate something by turning a few dials, and then you got magicians, and I have this thing about I've been looking into magic, for example, because I think magic is on the other side of the coin of radionics. I think they have a lot of similarities, more than dissimilar. I mean, their tools are magic wands, magic potions, these chants, a ceremony, a ritual, whatever it may be. But what they're doing there is they're projecting their energy, they're projecting their intent into the universe for a certain event to happen, and they're using all these different elements, all these different things. Like I said, whether it's herbs, it could be dirt or whatever, and to basically the energy of that to reinforce that intent into reality. And it's just and so when I look at this stuff, I just kind of think, wow. I mean, is radionics magic or is magic radionics? That's what I kind of wonder about this. I mean, why do these tools work? And again, it's a tool. Instead of what I like about this, and the reason why these magicians are so looking into what I do, is because with radionics, they can what takes them like hours of prep work and what have you in a ritual, setting up their rooms and putting down whatever the sigil of the day is or whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. Instead of spending hours of prep work, they simply can just get together, basic elements that represents that ceremony, put them on a machine, tune the machine for it to happen, and let it do its job. And the results is almost equal.
This is a mind amplification device, and I think mind, reality, consciousness, is this a holographic, universe? I don't know, but it comes down to basically, like Luke when he's trying to lift his X-wing out of the, like swamp, he can't, and he says it's too heavy, and
Mm-hmm.
Yoda basically says that there's no difference. The only limitation is the limitations that your mind imposes.
Right.
And he overcomes his own lack of confidence. Picking up a stone is the same thing as raising an X-wing. It's the message that is taught to him. How to become a Jedi master. And
Yeah.
so I understand intuitively that manifesting a Coke is absolutely no different than manifesting your snowstorm, than
Yeah.
manifesting a Benz or anything. It is the art of learning that lifting a stone is the same thing as lifting the X-Wing fighter. Now, have I mastered this? No, I am not a Jedi. I still think, unfortunately, I know the weight of the X-Wing fighter. I know all the calculations. As a very scientific person, this is much harder for me to overcome my own weights and limitations and formulas and calculations. But when I can go to passion and bypass logic, I have to admit it worked. And I can't say that it didn't. So you got an endorsement from a person that would, with every ounce of my being, that wants to be skeptical. But I saw it and I experienced it and I cannot deny it.
Right. And it's just, it made me wonder, okay, is reality flexible? Is it fluid? Does it change? And you kind of walked right into it when you were talking about Star Wars. Okay, you know, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. When Mobius was a kid, and I don't think I'm over exaggerating this, you were a Star Wars, Star Trek geek. If it was sci-fi, you were into it. Like it was like you lived and breathed the stuff. Am I right or wrong?
Well, I told you my dream job as an adult, which raised some eyebrows when I would tell, like, like teachers or counselors, I wanted to be Star Trek and I wanted to be Scooby Doo as my adult job. And, such a thing does not sound very rational, but hey, that is what I am now and I'm paid to do it. So
Right.
it is possible. So you're right. I absolutely love sci-fi, but
Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
wanted to make sci-fi a reality. I have. I mean, I built the things that I saw, and I still build things. I go back and review, and then I make them. So, and I make the joy so others can have them. I mean, the tablets that we're using now, how long did it take? 15 years after TNG, we had cell phones and tablets. I mean, it's becoming what we can imagine and what we can create. Now it's very short period between imagination and creation. So yeah, I am the geek of which you speak.
Okay, and then I started bringing up to you the Mandela effect, and I said, "Hey Mobius, check out the leg on was it C3PO? Check this out and see what you think. Do you see anything unusual there, buddy?" And you're like, "Oh shit, what the hell, man?" And could you please tell everybody what was the change?
Okay, more than most anybody, it's one thing to look at the screen and see something, and then you can always say, well, maybe you don't remember it correctly. But I actually built the C3PO model, and I remember the pieces in the kit, and there's only like three colors that were in the kit. All of the body was gold, The eyes popped out. They were on like a small red piece of plastic where the pieces were. And then there were some silver pieces that, fit on the chest for articulation. And then the whole thing went together with rubber bands to hold the arms and the legs together so that you could pose it and make it stand and have a shape. And I remember the pieces in the box and how many colors there were. And now I can't. It doesn't make sense. The colors of C3PO now have like the arms and the legs and all kinds of weird things. I would be afraid to look now because it keeps changing, and
Yeah,
it's not the same as the model that I built in the show. I remember there is
yeah.
definitely a there. You keep pointing out things, like go look at this, go look at that, and
Hmm. I
and
mean, yeah.
everything
Now he has a silver leg.
now
Now he
is
it's
yes.
you know. And another thing too, we were talking about the Darth Vader mask. I mean, everybody remembers that thing. All I remember was it was completely black. I don't remember any coloration on the mask itself. I just remember the thing being a shiny black mask. Okay, and it had like a mouthpiece. I think it may have been variations of black, but that was pretty much it. And what
Yes.
does it have now? It has like silver stripes around the triangular. Say that 20 times fast. Triangular mouthpiece on the mask. There's like silver stripes on it. And I think there's some additional other colors if memory serves.
I I actually had the headpiece that you wore, the whole thing, and so I had it, and I had it sitting on a table, and I know what color it was. And again, when I look, it is not the same as my memory. But you keep doing things. You show me countries, you show me the Panama Canal, and
Yeah.
not like I paid attention to everything that went on in school and history and all that. I was not, my imagination was somewhere else when I was in class. But there was the most boring film that we watched for the Panama Canal construction until they started setting off incredible amounts of dynamite to make this canal. Then it had my attention. I love big explosions. So
Right.
I that intently. And they were like, one explosion after another. You can still find this online. It's about I think it's a two-part, the way it was on film. And it showed the Panama Canal absolutely being built, with a little deviation with the lakes, but it was east to west, an almost straight line.
Hmm.
And our friend, who is a retired uh, three-digit agency person,
Yes.
he's done more than that. He has been in the country and he drove the entire length of the Panama Canal. He is a pilot and he will tell you that he went east to west and there's no deviations. There was nothing. The Panama Canal that you see now is a multi just it jumps between lakes and it's much larger and it has bends and twists and all kinds of things that is in no way consistent with the film that I saw from my youth. So you keep talking of you love to show me things and like what do you remember, and then you show me and it just okay. If I thought it was just me, I would start to think I was losing it. But people who have degrees in psychology that we know look at it and they're like, wait a minute, this isn't the place that I visited. This isn't the memories that I have either.
Right.
So somehow or another, we are experiencing changes in a timeline. And I can't begin to explain why we would be able to remember the changes in the timeline if
Uh,
we and we would not be affected like everyone else, and why we notice what others don't see and don't immediately scream, wait a minute, this is not right.
right. Exactly. It's the strangest thing. And I had a similar uh, thing with Christian McLeod. He's a big cryptic guy. He's all he's into Bigfoot and what have you, the Asheville area. And I mean, also I think he even runs one of the tours for the Ghost Tour for Joshua over in Asheville. And but his when he was younger, he was a deep sea diver, salvage and that kind of thing. And that's where he was out of, he did a lot of his stuff in the in the Caribbean. and I asked him, I said, "Hey, Christian, how big is Cuba?" And he said, "It's probably about twice the size of Puerto Rico, give or take. It's not really that big of an island. It's about, I mean, it's a big island, but it's not, not that big." And I said, "Okay, really?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Do me a favor." And he was on his computer when we did this. Said, "Look up the map of Cuba now, and tell me, is that what you remember?" And he pulled it up, and he said, "What the hell, man?" He said, "Because Cuba now is the size of Florida." And I remember when it was almost due south of, I think it was Key Largo, if memory serves, the very last key at the very bottom tip of Florida, southern tip of Florida. I think it's Key Largo. Uh, Cuba was like 90 miles south of Key Largo. All right. Now it's moved. The entire country, the island has shifted westward, and right now it is in the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico. I mean,
Ye-
the western part of that island is in the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico. And
Also, we were reviewing, and I think our retired uh, 3-digit agency buddy,
yeah,
and we're looking at U.S. German history, and it talks about a terrorist attack on the United States uh, by the Germans, and that they blew up a large uh, ammo dump that damaged the Statue of Liberty, and it
correct.
was the largest terrorist attack. It
Yeah,
also speaks of hundreds of ships being damaged by subs, and it speaks of like a private fleet of people going out to try to fight either the subs that were surfacing or any German warships because we were taking such heavy damage. I
hmm
have, okay, in school very clearly, and I loved war type stuff. And I remember that there were only 2 incidents of sub attacks off the East Coast that were done by U-boats, and that both were sunk, and that we know the locations. And I believe at this point one had been resurfaced.
hmm
And now entire history that as we were and we all three have agreed on it does not match anything that we're reading. I don't know anything about this terrorist attack that occurred. It's an unknown. It's a
Hey,
investigation.
yeah, you started to break up on me a little bit again there, Mobius.
Okay, the attack
Yeah,
the Germans on the U.S. during the WW1 period is the justification for the internmentship of the Japanese. And looking at history, and I don't recognize the history that I'm now reading does not match the history of of when I was in school in the time period that I recall. And
yeah,
we all of us agree absolutely could write what we were taught and it doesn't match. So
yeah,
I don't have an explanation for this. And you're the one that initially brought this to my attention.
yeah.
And I went at this to debunk it. I went to be skeptical. It didn't make any sense.
hmm
And the more I looked at it, the more baffled I was and I remain. So I have to agree the Mandela effect is there, and I do see it. And I don't know why others don't see it. They don't
Yeah.
see, they seem to almost be of a different timeline.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. That people have changed. That people that I know, that I've known for years, and they don't even seem like they're the same people. And frankly, for me, I think I'm the same person I've always been. I like to think I am. You know, but I tell you, one thing that gets me is we have a mutual friend, and I'm not going to say who it is. One year I asked him, said, "Hey, tell me the Lord's Prayer," and he said, "Okay, forgive us our." And it gets down to, "Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us." Okay, that's how I remember it. I don't know. How do you remember it? Do you remember trespasses? Is that what you remember when you were a kid?
That is correct. That's the way that
Okay. All right. Now it has changed. I don't care how. Matter of fact, somebody sent me a prayer book. It's over 120, 150 years old, and it was pointed right to the Lord's Prayer, and it says debts and debtors. Now it says debts and debtors. And here's the funny thing about it: it'll go back and forth. Now, but here's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. I asked this guy again this year. I said, "Hey, what do you remember in the Lord's Prayer?" He said, "Oh, debts and debtors." He said, and I said, "Huh?" I said, "Debts and debtors. Uh, are you sure?" He said, "Yeah, I'm 100% sure. That's how it's always been." And I said, and I told him, I said, "Well, last year you told me it was trespasses." He said, "No way. It's always been debts and debtors." I said, "No, last year I asked you the very same question. You said trespasses." And so my point is this the same guy I talked to last year, or is this a different guy? I mean,
I will
they look
give,
the same, they sound the same, they pretty much act the same, but they have a. It seems like they come from a different time.
well, I will give a data point, and you can ask people, and this is one of the stupidest things, and I don't even know why it's an issue. But a long time ago, on some daytime television show, and I don't watch TV, so I was probably, pretty young and sick to be watching TV, is the
Mm-hmm.
only use I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
But that little small guy, the midget guy that played Tattoo on
I
Fantasy
remember. Yeah, yeah.
it showed his life, and it said that he had been a drug and sex addict, and that he had some kind of weird cult like life, and he had committed suicide after shooting his girlfriend. And I distinctly remember, like showing his body being taken in an ambulance and putting, in, and the police all around, and his back sliding glass door had been shot out. And so I watched all these details, all the money he spent on drugs, sex, and alcohol, and it vilified him. Now, lo and behold, at one point, watching, like the internet, he's alive again. And at this point, it says that he is, like a huge advocate for like poor kids and disabled kids, and he's going around spending all of this money building, hospitals for kids, and that he's just a great humanitarian. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It is not the same guy. It's not. There's not one bit of what I saw before. So now he apparently is dead again, and he had a very hard life, and he died very poor. And sometimes it will say suicide, and sometimes it will be natural causes. But every time, if I wait 4 or 5 months and I check what happened to him in his life, it's never consistent.
Yeah.
So it's very, very odd.
And I'll give you an example. This happened today. I was talking to a good friend of mine that lives out west, and and they were telling me, "I got to tell you, this is really strange." And I said, "Oh, go ahead and tell me what happened." And they said, "I have a water spigot and a hose that's right behind a rose bush, and this rose bush is so close to the house, or was so close to the house that I always get thorns every time I go in there and try to unravel it or whatever to water the lawn or whatever it may be." And I said, "Okay, well," I said, "now that very same bush is 5 feet away from the house." I said, "It's like one day it's like next to the house, now it's 5 feet away." And I said, the obvious thing, could you say, well, did somebody cut it away? No, it's like it's the same size bush, but it's physically 5 feet away from the house.
I don't have an explanation for any of this. And I remember on Coast to Coast, they asked, I think Nori said that he was dead, and people started like writing in and fast blasting that, and it was like 50-50 that he was alive and dead, and people were talking about the same show that I obviously saw. Others were talking about the fact that he was a humanitarian. And so there was a mix of that show of people's beliefs to where he was. He was virtually Schrodinger's cat. He was both alive and dead at the same time, with
Mm-hmm.
multiple outcomes to what people were remembering.
Right.
And since then, it's pretty much gone. Like I said, he is now dead. But at that point is when I realized that there cannot be this many people with the exact same memories and it not be significant. Something here is actually going on. It is a genuine phenomena. I don't understand it. and it warrants investigation. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I don't know how to investigate something where your only tool is memory. And it seems like that the things that you leave as markers in the past are not concrete. The
Mm-hmm.
past itself is an illusion. And you
Yeah.
know what? This may actually have something to do as a back door to why the wishing machine works.
Yeah.
Because reality as we know it may not be as we perceive it. It
Yeah.
itself may be an illusion.
Yeah, and I think you just drove into another point. And again, this is for the newbies because everybody else has heard this. One time I was really troubled about, how can I explain how this damn thing works? I mean, is there any kind of scientific experiment or anything that I could reference to? So if I was to tell a rational human being, okay, how the hell does this thing work? And they have any kind of a scientific background. What can I tell them where I don't look like a total whack job? And again, this problem bothered me. And and I set a machine for this very same thing to answer this question. Within 2 weeks, I saw this 5 minute video on YouTube called the double slit experiment. And it was like Dr. Quantum. It was a cartoon. Anyway, to sum it up, it says that when matter is not observed or measured, it goes back to behaving like energy. It goes like what you said earlier. It exists, but it doesn't exist. Okay, but when it is observed and or measured or both, it goes back to behaving like matter again. So in other words, this physical reality doesn't exist unless it's observed or measured. That sounds like a holographic universe to me.
One of the best examples of what you're talking about, and I feel so sorry for these poor scientists, but when we first got the electron microscope, they came to the conclusion that it would be really cool to document uranium releasing its radioactive neutron and being able to get this in imaging. And
Mm-hmm.
guess, they stared and they stared and they stared. And you know what happened? Nothing. Nothing happens. It stops functioning, as a radioactive source when observed. It does not give off the neutron. It does not behave. This, when closely observed, bread will not mold. Things stop behaving. Their wave function breaks down and they don't behave according to physics.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole quantum rule about observing something and it stopped working, I would imagine that these scientists are still scratching their heads wondering why their electron microscope experiment failed, and something that should be absolutely, there is a mathematical probability of watching an area that you should see a neutron release. Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but when we had the technology to actually do it, the quantum universe does not allow it to happen. Observation destroys the effect of physics. It stops working.
Right.
And
Right.
so this is the same thing that you're talking about. Everything as we perceive it does not behave according to the rules of reality when we do certain things. And so
Mm-hmm.
somehow or another, I am positive that between mind and consciousness, the witness is a quantum device.
Yeah, and I came to the conclusion that basically when you dial those machines in, they become observers. Okay, it goes back. They're observing reality 24/7, and they're projecting your intent into that reality 24/7. And as a result of that, that's the reason why things change. That's the reason why anomalies will occur. Things beyond chance will actually happen, and it's the damnest thing again I've ever seen. And I've been experimenting on this stuff for oh god, it has to be almost 14 years now. And I got to tell you, every day I'm amused or shocked or surprised. And what gets me is, I have so many people that write me, great emails about, they had a lot of positive things. Some people are saying, well, I'm trying to do this and it's not happening yet. Well, I got to wonder, is there extenuating circumstances here? Or what you're looking for? Like say, for example, have one client that's they used the machine to pass, I think, a realtor exam, and they passed. Everything went great. There was a few little irregularities that happened in the class, but everything worked out great for them. They got their license and all that good stuff. Now they're looking for an acre of land, and saying, "Oh, we've talked to this guy that has this perfect acre of land, and that we can set up our home and be affordable and all this, and he won't sell and whatever." And I'm thinking, well, keep on looking. I think you may be knocking on the wrong door. You know, uh, you know. My suggestion was, in order to help reality move along, yeah, they got a machine set to find the perfect house for them, and I gave them a few little pointers how to do this, and they're still having a problem trying to set everything up. And I got to ask, what are the basics here? You know, um, you know, how good is your credit? Do you have money for a down payment? A lot of variables here. Maybe Farmer Brown doesn't want to sell that acre of land. And if he does it have infrastructure on it? Maybe you don't have a well, availability of water in that particular part of the those particular lots. Maybe that might be a little be a bit of an issue there. It's the reason why things aren't going through for you. It could be a multiple things, but take your time. And since this person's a realtor, start putting the fillers out for looking for land that meets their criteria. Maybe it won't be the place they're looking at now, but it'll be other places. Just kind of cast it out there. Just throw enough mud at the wall and something's going to stick. And that's my suggestion for some of these hard problems that people may have. And I got to ask, well, have you done your homework yet? Have you? I mean, you know, I always make the joke that I could wish for a million wishing machines to appear in my front yard, but and I can dial a machine for it. But the chances of that happening are basically zero. Yeah, it could happen. I mean, they could magically manifest themselves and appear out there, but no, in reality, it's not going to happen. The only way that could happen is for me to make to set up the facilities to manufacture them, or something along that line, or be able to buy a million wishing machines, for example. Um, that's the only way that this could actually happen. But the point of this is, I would have to make an effort. I would have to do something in order to make this thing become an actual thing to actually materialize. And again, it depends on what you're looking for. You, for example, I thought it was the Coca-Cola. That's something pretty simple. Yeah, the odds of this person coming there at that time, yes, that's a simple item. That's not something you could less than $1. Put it, get the thing at a convenience store for $1 or a couple of bucks. Bring it to your house. I mean, it's no big deal. That's no big deal. You don't have to move mountains, no pun intended, where you're located at. But you don't have to move mountains to make that happen. The candy bars, yeah, I mean that's they're coming there to bring you a gift from from Europe, or whatever, when they come to visit. And that's again, something has to happen. Is that a major occurrence? Not really. I mean, it probably wasn't a lot of money to get that candy, get it, and put it in their suitcase and bring it to your house. It really wasn't a lot of effort, but the chances of that happening pretty freaking slim, especially something as unique as that. Then you get back to this talking to this guy uh, about who was the set director. That right there, that was that kind of blew my mind. That was against all odds. But you set the dials, you put out your intent, and there you go. You know Things go into place. The right person sees your name at the right time. Says, "Oh, you have an interest in this, in this particular subject, which you happen to be, that happen to be his thing," and then you two connect, and now you're friends. I mean, the odds of these things happening are slim, are almost you can't. I don't know. I'm probably looking at billions, if not trillions, to one of something like this happening, where all these things line up to happen, and that's the whole point. And people that they kind of question. They expect things to happen instantaneously, but it's a case by case basis. What has to change in your reality, or what has to happen in your reality for these things to happen? To get that acre of land or to get that Coca-Cola, what has to happen? The chain of events. And this is something, I can't calculate all that. I have a general overview of what it would probably take to get something, to make something materialize like that. Um, but again, it's just one of those things where people, you have to you have to do your own work. And I keep saying this a lot. This seems to be a recurring theme on some of my shows. You have to project energy out there. It depends on what it is. Yeah, you could say, "Oh, I can turn a machine because I want to be a rock star and be the greatest singer in the world." Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you have some actual talent and you have the charisma, you can get up on stage and you're able to draw a crowd and you become a star. Yeah, that can happen. I mean, Mick Jagger, I used to make a joke about him. I didn't think the guy could sing, but one thing about it, he's one of the most famous singers out there. One of the most famous rock groups that's ever existed. And that guy, he's 84 years old. He's still performing, and he still has the charisma to do this. But the point of it is, what are you looking for? Things have to change. You have to do your own work. You have to actually make something that people, if you're trying to sell something, you have to present it in such a way where people will buy it. And and all of these machines do. They do change reality enough to open up the doors for you to make things happen. And again, it's a case by case basis. And I hope I'm not running my mouth too much, Mobius, because you and I, we've had these conversations a million times before, off air. And but I just want to give the public a general idea of what we think is going on with these radionics machines. And I just find it fascinating. But anyway, see here, I think we're almost at 2 hour mark. Do you want to call it a night here and move on, or is there anything else you want to discuss? The floor is yours.
Well, let me put one thing in, and this is something you don't hear very much. Here is a scientific analysis of making wishes. Let me just, for anybody that is going to buy a wish machine and use it, I think the worst wish that you can make is I want to win the lotto.
Oh,
And
yeah.
let's reduce this down. What if you have a wishing machine and you have a garden outside and you are wishing for it to rain on your garden because you want that garden to bloom and feed your family? But the neighbor beside you has a wishing machine and his kid is having a birthday and he's wishing for that day for the sunniest sky in the entire universe and a nice day and it to be warm for his kid and pretty.
Hmm.
Obviously, those two wishes are in conflict, and what you get is complete chaos. Now,
Hmm.
imagine all the people who are wishing to win the lottery. It is impossible for everybody to get that wish. I think a more logical wish and a less selfish wish. And you were talking about the real estate person. They chose one piece of land that belonged to somebody else and decided they want it. Any wish cheats another person out of freedom of choice, I think that wish is doomed to fail. But if you wish for the best possible piece of land in your highest good at a price that you can afford in a way that you can afford it, and you trust the universe, you trust God, you trust whatever it is that you look to as the power that is behind reality to provide for you, then you open the door of possibility. But when
Hmm.
you focus your mind on absolutely one item, I want the car that used to belong to William Shatner and none other. I think, there's probably 20 people that would love that for their collection or whatever. The more you open your mind and you allow the universe to provide your highest good, and the less you define of how it must come, I think the more likely you are to succeed. So there you go. There's some scientific reasoning that I have actually thought out on the wishing machine and the
Yeah.
failures of the people. I've never seen these complex, selfish wishes work well that require other people's will to be bent for your success. So you have to leave the universe open to figure out how to create that you seek. And I think you would agree on that. So there's a lesson that I've seen, and I do customer support, and I see anybody asking, and when I see that, I realize that they put up a wall that cannot be won because they become the one neighbor against the other neighbor who cancel each other out because they're fighting all for the same thing in a different way. And there's just no way that everybody can come out. So you need to individualize and allow the universe to come to you in a way that serves you and compromises no one. Then
Hmm.
your wish is on its way and it has the magic to succeed.
Yeah, and I tell you, a good way of simplifying that is just say this or something better.
This or something better. I agree 100%.
Yeah, and that's what I say, this or something better. And you know, and I get a lot of emails from people who are saying, and from time to time I get, oh, I want this person to fall in love with me. Trust me, trust me on this. Don't wish for a particular person. Wish for the right person for you. That way, you have opened up the entire universe.
And
You've
trust
opened.
the universe for your highest good and your highest happiness because you may end up like she may or he be a psychotic, a drunkard, have problems you can never imagine, bleed your accounts dry. It may all be, shiny and pretty, but you have to trust the universe to know better than you do things you can never imagine. So if you don't and you get really, really selfish, your wish may become your curse.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
exactly. Exactly, and that's what it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Yeah, I would say it kind of falls in the 80-20 rule. I would say at least minimum 80% of what I do with these machines comes to pass, but you have that 20% or that 1 out of 5 that may not, be completely what you wanted. But here's the thing: in hindsight, if you look back, you'll think, "Oh man, I dodged a bullet. I'm glad this thing didn't go through because this would have really screwed me up." There were facts here that I did not know at the time when I set that machine. I wanted this particular thing or this particular situation, and again, trust the universe on this. Just like you said, you know, wish for, just wish for, have a, wish for this, and always end it with this or something better. And you do that, and you just open up your entire mind for the universe to sort this out for you and give you the best possible outcome.
I think that's a pretty good point to end on, and I think that's the best possible advice that we could give to people. So hopefully, we've done a pretty good show here.
I think it's been very informative. I mean, you and I, we always go back and forth, and I like to joke around with you on the flat Earth stuff because there are some anomalies there, but we'll talk about that in another show. And I always like to joke around with you and kind of get under your skin every once in a while because that's just what guys do. And yeah, I just like kind of messing with you on that. But for the most part, man, I have to say that yeah, when we've had our discussions, it's based on fact, it's based on rational thought or the most logical outcome for a particular situation. And usually, like when we discuss, say, a political situation, we don't know all the facts that are going on behind the scenes. We don't know what the situation is because it's all secret. It's all compartmentalized. You'll never know. Even our mutual friend, when he did his job, it was compartmentalized. He just got a small piece of the puzzle of the big picture. He may be able to kind of piece together a general idea of what was going on, why he was doing a certain job. Maybe he might be able to do that, but the entire big picture, he didn't have a clue, and that's intentional.
And that is the way the universe works. And that's why we're here to try to get it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Mobius, again, I'm going to make sure that the links for everybody to go check out the Sunshine Simple generator. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's immediately available. And really, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest check it out. Uh, you will not be able to find a better unit for the price. And this guy, I mean, the detail that goes into these units is just phenomenal. And like I said, I think I've had mine for over a year and a half. And the thing, I always keep it charged and keep it ready to go. And that's how much confidence I have in this technology because I realize this is the difference between me, having, depending on a campfire for my lighting, or actually being able to plug in some LED lights, or if I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I need to jumpstart the battery on my vehicle, at least I have something there that will do it. I have a way to, to actually give me a little bit of civilization when everything else is dark. And so, but once again, Mobius, I want to thank you so much for your time coming on the air, and you just been you just been an absolute, just a bundle of information here. I mean, you've given people a lot of things that they need to think about, and and like I said, I really do appreciate you coming on the air and being my friend.
I enjoy it. I'm definitely your friend. And good
All right,
night. Good night to
all
all.
right, all right. Bye.